You know, I have heroes. I have great heroes from the past that I felt always retained a level of mystery about their life. And that, for me, was all thrown out the window when I did the film Titanic. So when I did that movie, I realized it would never quite be the same. So, you know, and I think that is fundamentally truly important for an actor to be able to, like I was talking earlier, to suspend that disbelief. If you know way too many things intimately about a specific human being, they're not able to convey those characters realistically to an audience. You feel like, oh, that's not him, he's just acting, or that they're nothing like that. And so, yes, I feel like when there is specific material that I feel deserves this type of forum, I do seize those moments, so you're right.
What is it you most want us to know about Frank? To see the character and not you.
Well, I can tell you what I love about him, and what I love about Frank is so often in this industry, like I was saying earlier, you're given characters that have some heroic element to them, something that defies the odds, and this is somebody that is, like I said, a product of their environment and just is a simple man. You know what I mean? He's a simple man who wants a simple life at the end of the day and wants to be told that he's a good husband. And I found it immediately, I related to him immediately. I really did. I related to his angst immediately. I mean, it's hard for me to identify more with the characters that do defy the odds, the heroic people that risk their life time and time again to, with some, in some vigilant pursuit of justice. This is a man that is just trying to make things work. And
why is it harder and harder to identify with the heroics? Because you what?
Because I lead a life nowhere near that, my friend. I mean, I go to these sets and, I get jobs and I research characters and I get paid money to be an actor. So, it's, I mean, there's obviously sometimes where you just do have an emotional connection to somebody, even if your life is nothing like them. And I remember sitting here talking with you about The Aviator and Howard Hughes, and I
larger than life.
That was one of those characters in my life where I felt like I felt a connection with the man. I felt that I needed to put this guy's life up on screen, and it was something that took eight years to sort of hone and get right. And but those things come few and far between, and they're less and less. Those possibilities are less and less, I think, in today's age of cinema. I really, it's hard to make movies like that. It really is.
Well, then that sort of relates to my question about how often you see material like this.
Not often.
Not often.
Not often at all. And I think there's going to be a wider gap between the sort of independent genre of filmmaking and the big budget sort of spectacle movies, and the movies that are a hybrid of those two things that have, real powerful emotional or deep content in them that are also have some scope are going to kind of dissolve away. I see that happening more and more in the industry. It's either like, this is the, a regurgitation of films you've seen 1,000 times that work and are, sound for the studios, and this is what we're making. Or you could take a chance and do a really low-budget, small movie and see how it turns out. I feel like...
So that's the gap between either take a small-budget film and see how it turns out, or
less
some
and
spectacular,
less
but nowhere in between in which you are enhancing
those types of movies
capacity to tell a story that's worth telling.
Those types of movies are becoming few and far between, yes.
Is it possible that you could take more risk in whatever way, back to even Frank's character, to see that you, because of whatever leverage and resource you have, to make those kind of movies?
That's what I'm trying to do.
You are?
I'm trying my best.
And how do you try to do it?
How do I try to do it? I mean,
looking for property, looking for...
Everything at the end of the day when you're making a movie starts with the material and how well written the script is. I've never seen a silk purse made from a sow's ear. I've never seen it happen wherein a crap script with crap characters, a director somehow found a way to make a masterpiece out of it. And that's the constant struggle that we all sort of have as actors, is finding those gems, and that's why people grab onto them like vultures. When you find a great piece of material or a great script, it's like, you should see what happens. It's like a piranha feeding fest. Everyone wants it. Everyone wants it.
Well, why then did it take 11 years to make this movie?
it wasn't a huge, I mean, although this was a cult novel and way ahead of its time, it wasn't one of those bestsellers. It was kind of those things, and a small group of people knew how special this novel was, and you know, thank God the people that were involved in owning material waited.
Okay, so, but just help me understand how many. I mean, how many of those in which, if the world or if smart people like you knew about, would be like piranhas trying to get to it? I mean, are there 4 or 5 pieces out there like that? I mean, do you have them?
I'm looking for one right now, my friend.
Looking for one.
Actively looking for a good piece of material.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With all that you have, you know, in a sense of clout, you're looking for an interesting piece of material.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
I think a lot of people will tell you the same thing.
I'm sure they would. They do.
It's very difficult. I mean, I could go on and on about it, but it's just the simple truth. I mean, look at how many films have been done. Look at how many subjects have been taken on. You know, hopefully, as we progress into the future, we'll see cinema sort of take different turns, and I'm curious to see where it goes. But, you know, it's up to these sort of revolutionary new filmmakers and people coming up with new concepts and ideas, and that's what we're constantly waiting for. But also, it is a business at the end of the day, and studios will not finance certain projects. I mean, they'll take low risk with low budget films and say, okay, this is a dark piece of material that not many people will go see. Here's a few $1 million, go make that.
We know that the ceiling it can reach is 30 million, 40 million.
But maybe it'll get an Oscar buzz, and more
right.
people will see it. Maybe we'll make some money, it'll have a little prestige. But I just feel like I've seen less and less of those sort of bigger budget films that actually have a tremendous amount of depth dissipate. That's what I've seen anyway.
Has acting turned out to be all that you wanted it to be?
It's incredible. It's incredible. You know, I never knew that I could do it as a career. I never knew. It was the first memory that I had. It's the first thing I can think of is saying, I want to be an actor to my parents. And if I hadn't lived in Los Angeles and been in such close proximity to sort of the mecca of movie making, if I didn't have parents that said, okay, we'll drive you to auditions, we didn't have the economic means to, you know, move camp from Idaho to Los Angeles because some snotty 10-year-old kid says, I want to be an actor. You know, we did it, and after school I got to go on auditions, but it was always, and I've said this before, it felt like an elite group of people, and it felt like I would never belong to them. So once I got the opportunity to, for example, get the movie This Boy's Life with Robert De Niro, I said, wow, now I'm able to I might be able to steer the course of my career. I might be able to have a career similar to these guys that you know, I so admire. And that I knew at 15 years old was the biggest gift in the world, and that's never left me. You know, I've never that thirst or that hunger for wanting to give one great performance that I'm truly satisfied with, or be in one movie that I said, I love this film, is something that I don't know will ever be quenched. I don't know, and I think that's a good thing, because it keeps pushing you. You know, you're constantly dissatisfied. In other words.
But have you found it yet? I mean, do you think? In other words, do you have to live with the idea that it's not quite what I dream of doing? Not acting, but finding that performance, that character, that story.
It's only in
other words, you won't keep reaching for it if you think you found it.
Well, it's only in hindsight, really. I mean, you can't really appreciate anything you've ever done or any movie you've ever been in, for me, for minimum 5 years, because you're so attached to what it was like making the movie that you can't look at it from a subjective, you know, from a different perspective. So I don't know. You know, I don't know, but I do know that I still have that desire to make great movies.
You know what's interesting? There's a book out by Malcolm Gladwell, which is called Outliers. You know, and it really is the story of looking at success and performance and talent. People who've achieved something special, and it looks at the Beatles in terms of the phenomenon that they had being able to go somewhere and really have a chance to play for a long time. The idea also is that 10,000 people who become the best at something spend 10,000 hours practicing doing it. But it's about also the very point you said. You know, you are sitting here because you had parents who lived in L.A., who were willing to make some sacrifice, who cared about you having a chance to pursue your dreams. But if you had grown up somewhere else with a different kind of parents, you might not be sitting here as Leo DiCaprio, one of America's and one of the world's best-known actors. Yeah.
And that in a combination with the fact that you have that one lucky moment. And that you can't discount. I mean, no matter, I don't care what anyone says, whether somebody has talent or not, whether they were destined for a certain career, if you don't get that one opportunity and you're not there at the right time to seize it and you didn't go for it, none of it would happen. I would not have the career I would have right now whatsoever, I don't think. I mean, it's all about a showcase or that ability to do that one thing that says, okay, now we'll allow you to do more movies. That's it. You know?
Now, was that Titanic or something else?
No, that was, I think that was either This Boy's Life or Gilbert Grape.
Yeah, I was talking about Gilbert Grape, yeah, right.
You know, if I didn't have the, I mean, I would have been very, very happy continuing doing television work. I would have loved it. You know, I would have been doing commercials and sitcoms. It would have been fine. Yeah. I mean, doing some theater. I was ecstatic to be an actor, period. I was finally saying, wow, I can do this for a living. I don't need to have some other vocation and do this on the side. And that, you know, growing up in this industry, I know what a very special gift that is, because there's a lot of people that would love to be working actors and unfortunately aren't. And that's the bottom line for me, what I'm most happy with. This is all the cherry, this is the whipped cream and the walnuts and the cherry on the cake. Being able to choose your roles, all this stuff is like, you know, beyond it. It really is.
Yeah, but when Gilbert Grape happened, did you see it, this is my option, this is my opportunity, I've got to be there for this because this could make all the difference in the world? Or did you simply say, man, this is a great role, I'm going to give it all I have?
Well, that was an interesting decision point. It's funny you bring that up because I don't want to do any big sob story about how I grew up and, you know, the financial background that I had, but to finally have an opportunity after This Boy's Life, that first movie that I did, there was another movie wherein I got offered more money than I could have ever imagined. And I was about to say yes to it, but there was actually something, and I'm kind of surprised in hindsight looking back as a 16, 17-year-old saying, wait a minute, there's this role here that is substantially less money, but I knew, and that all came from having watched these great movies in the past, that I knew I wanted to strive for doing something a little bit better. And I don't know where that came from. It's really weird, because I should have taken that other role. You know what I mean? But I had these heroes. You know, I really had these heroes that that I knew did certain types of movies.
Who were those heroes?
Oh God, I mean, you know, I mean, I remember watching, of course, James Dean as a young child saying, I mean, as a young kid, as a 12, 13-year-old. You know, Mitchum, of course. De Niro, of course, Hoffman, I mean, all these guys, I mean, endlessly watching their films. I mean, Monty Clift, of course Brando, all these guys.
They all have something, there is a line there, though, that goes through all of them. I mean, it's part sort of clear talent, but it's also sort of, there was a kind of outlaw about all of them. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of sort of rebellion about all of them. Mm-hmm. Mitchum, say, clearly Dean, clearly Brando. Mm-hmm. Talent, rebellion, outlaw. I mean, there is a certain, the people who appeal to you the most have a certain
outsider quality.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think of that?
I'm a bit of a rogue myself.
I see what you mean.
You know who the first one was, I think? I would think Cagney. Yeah. I think really Cagney. I remember watching Public Enemy with Scorsese, actually. He was screening it for one of the films that we did, and I said, wow, I mean, even predating Brando, this was a guy that came on screen and just, you know, threw all the rules out the window. I mean, Public Enemy was unbelievable. I mean, he just lit up the screen, and he was violent, terrifying, it was scary, and he was, I think, the first in that lineage of that sort of actor studio, even predating Brando, I think. I don't know why I brought that up, but I forgot to mention him
because he was out of the list.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting, and I'll close with this. It is this notion, you mentioned Marty, and showing films, and the idea. One of the things that I hope to do here, and he and I have talked about this, is to make more people beneficiary of this man's passion for movies and what he can show you and believes in. So
I have that same passion because I have never, ever, no film historian, no one that works at any museum, no cinema, genius that I ever have met that compares passion-wise and knowledge-wise to Martin Scorsese. I mean, the man is, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but he's consumed and lives and breathes cinema every day of his life, and everything is in his life is a reference to film. I mean, he looks at life and through different eyes. I mean, he's emotionally connected to movies. Now, it all comes from his childhood, of course, but
when because of asthma or something, he had to sit in the theater and watch movies was his way of.
I mean, it is infused in his DNA, unlike anyone I have ever met. So